Black people have shorter life expectancies than non-Hispanic whites. Now, that gap in life expectancy has changed over the years, and luckily that gap has closed a bit. But overall, the general consensus is that Blacks live shorter lives than non-Hispanic whites. But that's not all. Today I'm talking about racial health disparities because the unfortunate, the tragic, the horrific, the horrendous death of George Floyd, as much as we are grieving and we are mourning his death and we are searching for justice and we are trying to make it right and trying to figure out a way to make it right. When I think about George Floyd, what I think about is racism and inequality and discrimination and unfairness. And the problem with that is that those things are not just limited to interactions between the public and the police. We see the elements of inequalities and so many things play out all throughout society. When it comes to employment, when it comes to housing, when it comes to the prison system, etc., and even when it comes to health. Now, I'm not a sociologist. I am not a lawyer. I am not an employer. I am none of those things, but I am a doctor. And as we talk about race, and we talk about racial inequalities, and we talk about how that affects our lives and the lives of people like George Floyd and everyone else, we can't forget to talk about all those other ways that it affects our lives as well. And one of those is health. So let me continue. Blacks live shorter lives than non-Hispanic whites, but there's more. Blacks are 44% more likely to die from a stroke. We are 20% more likely to have asthma. We are 25% more likely to die from heart disease and 40% more likely to die from breast cancer. There's more though. We are 23% more likely to be obese and 52% more likely to die from cervical cancer. Our men are 2 times more likely to die from prostate cancer. And Black women, in terms of maternal mortality rates, Black women are 3 times more likely to die from a pregnancy-related complication than non-Hispanic whites. We are more likely, 8 times more likely to be diagnosed with HIV and 9 times more likely to die from HIV and 72% more likely to be diabetic. These statistics come from familiesusa.org and the CDC is cited for these statistics. Guys, racial and social injustice plays out everywhere. It plays out in our streets. It plays out with interactions between law enforcement and citizens. It plays out in housing and employment and in health and in so many other places. You might ask, well, why are Black people more likely to die from these conditions, to die of cancer, have cancer, die of this, have this? Why is that? Well, there's not just one answer. There's many, many answers. And we call those sort of social determinants of health, all the stuff that goes into how healthy someone is able to be, right? And some of these social determinants of health, in other words, what impacts and has impacted the lifespan of Black people are things like poverty. Makes a big difference, right? Lack of access to health care. If you can't get health care, how can you be as healthy as possible? It's hard, right? Environmental exposures. We know that Black people are more likely to live in polluted areas. We know that violence plays a role. Not only the violence that we're seeing in the scope of George Floyd and so many other Black women and men that have been victims to violence as such, but so many other types of violence as well. Incarceration in the prison system and racial discrimination. One of these things that literally is the underscore and undercuts really every aspect of life. I have had some friends of mine say, gosh, I didn't know that racism was still this bad. And I don't criticize those who say that because I understand that not everyone understands, or not everyone's in a position to understand or to have felt it. But the truth is, racism never went away. It's never gone anywhere. It just looks different. Now, I think we've made strides over the years, but clearly we have a long way to go. And as we talk about George Floyd and we memorialize him and we honor him and we pay tribute to his family and we try to get justice for what has happened, by the way, justice should only be done peacefully. As a family doctor, I do not advocate violent protests. I do not advocate rioting. We have to seek justice peacefully always. But as we talk and try to do those things and to try to make better, we also need to extend this conversation to housing, to employment, to the prison system, to health, and to every other sector that racial discrimination and all these other social determinants impact. I feel like this is an opportune moment because I feel like more than ever, I have heard people tell me that they want to know and they want to learn and they want to talk and they want to try. And I think that's wonderful. So let's do it. We have to do better. We have to love one another. We have to work together. We have to understand that while we may all be created equally, we are not all treated equally. And we don't all have equal experiences. And we must continue to work towards that. Guys, I want to know what you think. Tell me what your thoughts are right in the comments. Let me know what you think. I just thought this was the time to also talk about how racism affects so many other aspects of life. Guys, I'm Dr. Jen Caudle, and I'll see you soon.